I'm Martin Anderson, and live Studio B sessions on WNCW are made possible by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. And the nice folks in question here, the McCoury Band. Welcome, guys.
Hey, how are you? How you doing, Martin?
Doing well, thank
That's
you.
Great.
How far drive did you all have to do to get here? Is it?
Well, we left Nashville last night.
Okay.
Of course, we
All right.
slept all the way, and the driver, he slept too while we were
Now, wait a minute. Now, I hear you do drive the rig most of the time, Bill. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I used to drive all the time. My wife made me quit.
Okay.
So now I sleep.
That's good. And you're employing one more folks because the driver gets to actually drive now.
Yeah, he does.
Are you all living in Nashville these days?
Yes.
Mostly?
We all do.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sure do.
All together in one big group house like back in the old days?
Commune, a bluegrass commune.
Yeah, Bluegrass Commune. We hear about them from time to time. Cool. So you headed over here back to North Carolina for a show tonight in Brevard, the Mountain Song Festival. Not your first time to play there. You're heading back there.
Yeah.
Playing tonight. It's a nice fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club of Transylvania County. It's a nice thing they do.
Yes.
Steep Canyon Rangers will be hosting.
Yeah, we get to see those guys.
Yeah.
Woody and the whole gang.
Yeah, you've known them for a few years, and so you're doing that, and then also the Joe Miyoki Music and Arts Festival in Pinnacle, a little ways east of here. That's in between Winston-Salem and Mount Airy, basically. That's September 14th through 16th. It's early for you all. You all usually probably wake up around this time. And you are playing in front of a couple of nice microphones here and hitting the high note, just like who hit the higher notes? Was it Ira or Charlie Leuven? Charlie did the high ones, didn't he?
Yeah, Charlie called him Ari.
Yeah?
Ari hit the high notes, you know. And, that was written by those guys, but made famous by Carl Smith, the old country singer.
Right. Yes.
In Nashville.
Yeah. Did you see the Leuven brothers back in the day and Carl Story back in the day?
Yeah, sure did. Yeah, back in those days. Yeah, I saw Carl back in like 1952, I think it was. You know, he was really big then. Him and Farron Young were the biggest things going at the time, you know. But of course, I saw the Leuven brothers, you know, back, and they were just going three-piece all the time, you know.
Yeah.
And I saw them at Sunset Park, I think, in West Grove, PA there. They used to play there, and they played New River Ranch in Maryland, which is just across the line, you know. And Charlie told me one time that one of the opera acts had to cancel Sunset Park, and they were playing New River Ranch. So the promoter asked if they could do a show at New River Ranch, and there was two shows, you know. People used to do two shows, like afternoon and nighttime, and so they asked if we'd do a show there at New River Ranch, and then drive up to Sunset Park and do a show, and then drive back to New River Ranch and do a show, and then back up to Sunset Park, you know. And they did double shows, you know, but they're only about 10 miles apart.
Okay. Yeah.
Big country music places, you know.
Yeah.
And bluegrass, boy, there's a lot. Just north of Baltimore, you know, out of kind of northeast of Baltimore is where those two parks were, and there was a DJ there in Baltimore by the name of Ray Davis, and he had a big part in getting all the bluegrass in that part of the country, you know.
Yeah.
And so I got to see a lot of those guys back then, you know, in the 50s. And I was too young in the 40s, but I did go see some of them in the 50s.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was in the 50s when, folks like the Leuven brothers are big, but then there was this guy, Elvis something or other, that everyone liked. But I read that, everyone seemed to love Elvis, but who you really got into was Earl Scruggs.
I sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, when I was in high school, I graduated in 56. Well, I didn't graduate, I just slid through. But anyway, all the kids my age, you know, they were listening to Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, and I didn't realize how good those guys were because I'd already heard Earl, and he was a lot better than them guys. Earl Scruggs, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And anyway, but later on I found out they were pretty, they had a lot of talent. I really didn't know that then. Those rock and roll guys did.
Well, of course, maybe you had a little bias since you grew up for a good little while, those formative years in Bakersville, North Carolina.
Well, actually, I was born in PA.
Yeah.
You know, I was the first born up there.
Yeah.
There was three born in Mitchell County.
Yeah.
And then the rest were born up in PA, you know. And I got my brother taught me to play guitar. He was older than me. He's 9 years older than me. And he taught me to play the guitar, and then, of course, he bought a Flatt and Scruggs record in 1950. And one time I asked Earl, I said, when did you record Rolling My Sweet Baby's Arms, you know? And he said, you know, I really don't know. I can't remember. And what was the banjo player's name that was with him there when I asked the question? And anyway, Perkins, Larry Perkins, he said, he gave the date, the time, and everything when it was recorded, you know. Earl said he didn't remember, you know.
You know, some folks just have a wealth of information about where you were when and who you played with, but all the traveling you've done, it's I guess some of the details get hazy, but
it's fuzzy to me these days.
Soft and fuzzy. But you know, a few years ago you did the big 50-year of bluegrass compendium, that big box set. That must have been pretty interesting to look back at all this early stuff and then the more recent stuff, and you re-recorded a lot of it. Do you have any kind of revelations about hearing stuff from your early years with Bill Monroe beginning in, 63, and then today? Any big difference you hear in the music you made now versus then?
Well, you know, I'm not sure because I'm sure people change, you know, as they age, they change, you know. But basically, you know, if I want to hear good music, I go back and listen to Flatt and Scruggs and Bill Monroe. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a lot of great young bands coming up that are really, really great musicians and singers, you know. But those guys were all stylists, you know. They, if you heard one of those guys, you knew who it was right away. As soon as they hit a note or sung a word, you know, you could tell who it was. If it was Bill Monroe or Lester Flatt or Jimmy Martin, you know. Yeah. When Earl Scruggs hit that banjo, you knew who it was right away because he just had that certain touch, you know.
Yeah, it's like a fingerprint, if you will, on the banjo, or it's the sound of a voice. Yeah. You heard the voice of Earl's banjo, didn't you? Right off the bat.
You did, right off the bat, you know. He really knew how to play that thing.
Yeah. Well, you've got some folks that really know how to play their things too. You know, joining Bill Monroe was a big chapter for you in your life, and then getting your family members to join, and then to have this band. You have now these four nice guys behind you. That must have been a pretty big mark of progress for you.
It really was, you know, and we wanted to redo all those because these guys, they are. I just couldn't do without them these days. You know, they're great musicians, and I knew that we needed to re-record some of those that we were going to do because the sound, for one thing, the sound quality is better these days than it was back then, and not saying anything about the musicians I had back then, but I knew these guys could really put it down fast, and it didn't take us long to record it, did it?
No.
I mean, we was in there 1 hour and did the whole box set.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Because how many hours is the whole box set you're playing back?
No, I'm just kidding about that. But it didn't take us long. Several days, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think they've got the music in their blood.
They do. I guess they do. You know, all these guys. I'm telling you, man.
We should tell the folks, since they can't see, it's radio. It's Rob McCoury, of course, on the banjo. Ronnie McCoury is here on the mandolin. Jason Carter on the fiddle, and Alan Bartram backing him up on the bass. It's the Del McCoury Band on WNCW. There it is, the 1952 Vincent Black Lightning. As folks call it when they call us up just about every day. They would call in the request line here at WNCW. Will you play that motorcycle song?
Really?
I mean, you play around here, and you know the Asheville Turnaround. That great tune you do is probably one of the most requested ones. You'd think the crowd goes crazy, but I've seen you play Black Mountain, Brevard, other areas around here, and that song just has people going crazy. Is that the case elsewhere in the country, or is it just some weird thing around here?
You know, it is our most requested song. I must say that, and. A lot of times, on our shows, you know, we do all requests on our shows, and people are going to holler that pretty quick, you know, and I'll say, now, wait a minute, we got to do some other songs here first, something new we've got, you know, but they always request that song.
So I wonder
something about it.
What is it about it? Here's this guy, Richard Thompson, English folk rock singer, Fairport Convention, and I mean, he is one of the greatest songwriters. But you don't really hear bluegrass when you listen to Richard Thompson. But what is it about that song? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. It must be the story. You know, it touches people, I think, and a lot of times it's not people that have ridden motorcycles because I can tell, they didn't. But then the motorcycle riders, they do request it for sure.
Yep. Of course. And then all the folks that love redheaded girls and all the
Yeah,
other
really.
Characters in the song.
There's
I guess.
always a redheaded girl in the audience,
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Then it strikes a chord. Well, I mean, that's not the only Richard Thompson song you all have covered. And you've covered lots of other interesting folks. There's something about you all that's this nice open-mindedness you have. I mean, you're able to play for the hardcore bluegrass fans and please them because that's what you do. Like you said earlier, you keep on that great tradition of Flat and Scruggs and Bill Monroe and keep it true to the roots of it. But you have this open-mindedness that'll wander you down the songwriting pathway of Richard Thompson or to play with Steve Earle or the Preservation Hall Jazz Band or to play these jam band festivals. Did someone in particular inspire you about that kind of open-mindedness? Let's branch out.
We don't know what we're doing half the time. No, it's funny. It's funny. Oh Lord, I don't know. We're always up for trying anything.
Yeah.
And of course, my manager and the boys in the band, they've got all these ideas of things, and I'm just dumb enough to try it. But it's fun. It keeps everything interesting. It keeps the band interested. And nothing gets old or boring that way.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different things that we do, and I'm lucky if I remember words to the songs that we do, and all these different things we're trying. But
yeah.
But I got a teleprompter right here that I put stuff on you.
That's the smallest teleprompter I've ever seen, folks.
It's a teleprompter.
It's a teleprompter.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's trademark.
Yeah, it's non-electric, Dennis. Don't have no electric.
Dirk
to it.
Bentley named it that. He said, "Wow, if Del can do it, I can do it." He's got one on here on his guitar too.
We'll have to get a picture of that, put it up on our
But
Facebook.
hey, you know what? It's empty now. Boy, I hope I remember the words to this next song.
Charge it up on the drive over to Brevard. Maybe it's solar powered. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
But I mentioned the Preservation Hall Jazz Band. That was a nice surprise to get together with them.
Yeah.
And to do some stuff with them and helping to keep their hall and the tradition alive. You guys are all jazz fans too, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm now.
But was it one of you in particular? Was it one of you guys that were like, man, I love the Dixieland sound?
Yeah, I think I always did. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Ronnie.
No, Dad,
I like the sound of those guys, and I got to tell you this, I'm sure Bill Monroe listened to the guys in New Orleans, because I never asked him that, but Peter Rowan told me, he said, yeah, Bill, he worked for 3 years with Bill, I think, and I only worked a year. But anyway, he kind of managed Bill, too, on the road. And he said that Bill said he'd go down there when he was young and listen to those guys, and was influenced by the horns and things, I'm sure, And one time, Kenny Baker was playing fiddle with Bill Monroe when I was with Bill. And so Kenny played this fiddle tune I'd never heard before, and I'd played all those fiddle tunes. I knew all of them. I didn't know the names of half of them, but I knew the chords, and I could play them, And so he said, here, play this with me. And so, it took me a while to learn it. But anyway, I said, Kenny, where'd you learn that tune from? Oh, I learned that from a clarinet player. And I thought, clarinet player? Bluegrass fiddler? He busted my bubble. But he did, So he listened, a lot of the old fiddlers, they listened to clarinets and trumpets, they did.
Yeah.
So it's all connected.
It is.
In the beginning, it's if you go back, Earl did, He played some of those old tunes that came from down in that part of the country, when he got old enough to record. And
Yeah.
that bugle call Rag, and I'd have never dreamed that when I was a kid. I thought, Bill Monroe, now he's come up with something different, and And he didn't learn nothing from nobody. But I found out later he did too.
Yeah. That's how jazz came around. That's how bluegrass came around.
Uh-huh.
Well, now your all's latest release is full on straight ahead bluegrass, hardcore bluegrass from the Doghouse, right? But it's done by with David Grisman, who knows a thing or two about traditional bluegrass, but he branches out into all sorts of sounds, including jazz.
Yeah.
He's playing tomorrow night. It's the David Grisman Sextet tomorrow night at the Mountain Song Festival. I don't know if you guys are going to be around still to be able to meet with him, but these are some neat recordings that you all did, most of you anyway, in the 90s.
Yeah, several different times when we get. Well, actually, the boys, they got to play in Nashville tomorrow night. Their own thing there on the river, don't you?
No, 12th and Porter.
12th and Porter, yeah.
Okay.
There. But anyway, so we can't stick around. And a lot of times, if we're where David is, we'll get up together and play. But several times, you're right, back in the 90s, when we'd go to California to play, David would say, now come over and we'll record some stuff, And so we just go over there and record things, not thinking about releasing it at all. But he kept it all together, kind of. And I think there's a lot that he didn't release on this record too. That we did back then, and it was mainly this band, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think it was.
For the
And
most part,
David, plus David, playing some mandolin.
Yeah. Well, there's been some great releases. You did a nice tribute to Bill Monroe, of course, and another studio release from you guys in the works. What's happening there?
Yeah, let's see. We've got about 8 songs recorded,
Good.
don't we? On my part, and Rob's got the majority of a banjo album done, and gosh, these guys are recording all the time. I guess their last thing was the Keller Williams and Pick. Traveling McCoury's thing.
Yeah, the Traveling McCourys.
Yeah.
We saw you guys play. You were live on WNCW for that Warren Haynes Christmas Jam and the pre-jam a few years ago with the Lee Boys playing with you guys at Traveling McCourys.
Yeah.
And now we've got this nice release with Keller Williams. That's fun.
Yeah.
And so then it sounds like a new banjo release from Rob McCoury. But wait a minute, Rob, you've been pretty busy lately. Congratulations, Dad.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
And Uncle Ronnie and brand new Grandpa Dell. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other big news to report there?
He's got one too.
Yeah,
Alan's got one? Well, all right. Alan Bartram on the bass. Congratulations.
Babies.
That's great. Lots going on here. It's the Del McCoury
Job
Band.
security.
What's that? Yeah, job
security.
security. Well, congratulations. Congrats to you and your mothers. And speaking of mothers, actually, there's usually the folks on stage that folks know, okay, this is the band, but you've got a pretty key player off stage. Tell us about Jean McCoury. What all does she do? She keep the whole thing afloat, or what?
She's out there in the band, in the bus now, planning our next thing that we're supposed to do.
Yep.
But she does. She keeps, a lot of times I take her for granted, but she does so many things, that I expect her to do, But yeah, she has a lot to do with this organization, She does. She keeps all of the product, that keeps the up, the inventory, up on that. And she's good at that too, and works between the band and our manager and the booking agent. It's kind of it's kind of like an organization, and she's a big part of it. She is.
That's what I hear.
Travel agent.
Travel agent too.
Yeah, books those flights, and oh man, she aggravates herself to death on those flights. I tell you. She tries to get the best buy,
Yes.
And you can't get a good buy these days on a flight.
There's a lot involved in making an operation like this happen, and sometimes a spouse or family member wants nothing to do with it. Sometimes it's exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
From what I know about the late Earl Scruggs, his wife was all about that too, and so Jean is as well. What I hear is she's a really good cook and keeps you all well fed.
There's that.
Yeah.
It's the Del McCoury Band here on WNCW. Del McCoury last year inducted into the Bluegrass Hall of Fame, right? Congratulations. With George Shuffler, our neighbor from just down the road. Yeah, how was that?
That was great, It's a great honor. it's something you don't think about, you know. I always loved playing music, and of course when these boys come along, you know, then it gave me a more enthusiasm to play, you know, because I could see they were going to be great musicians, and so so you just play and do shows, and you don't think about an award, you know, but it's great to be awarded. It really is.
Yeah, well, that's culminating from a string of Entertainer of the Year and other awards, too, from IBMA. This year, you are the host there with Laurie Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Coming up, the end of the month.
We're going to sing a song, I think, too, you know, together.
Well,
yeah.
I don't think they'd let you leave without it.
She's a great fiddle player, you know, but I don't think she's going to play the fiddle. She's going to sing and play the old-time banjo, you know, kind of like, it's kind of a tribute to Doc, you know, we're going to do there, and a tribute to Earl Scruggs, you know,
Yeah.
Doc Watson, Earl Scruggs, and Doug Dillard, you know, he was a good friend of ours. I got to meet Doug. It's funny, I met Doug and Doc both in California, you know. I played with Bill Monroe out there, and our manager, Ralph Rensler at the time, it was Bill Monroe's manager. He said, now, Bill, I'm going to get this fella to come out here and open a show for you at a place called Ash Grove Club, you know, and it was Doc Watson, and I'm not sure that Bill had ever met him, and I know I had never met him, you know. And he came by himself, and you know, he just would sit out there on a chair and do all these songs and talk to people, you know. He was so good at that, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said to me, he said, will you go out and play guitar with me? And I said, well, I don't know if I know the chords to all these things you're going to do, you know. Oh, you can do it. Don't worry about it. And so that's how I met Doc. I went out there and sat on a chair and played those tunes with him, you know. And of course, at the same time, Bill Monroe told me and Kenny Baker, the fiddle player, said, now you boys are going to go up there and stay with them boys up there in the Topanga Canyon. And it was the Dillards. They had just made it big, you know. And they just got off of they had just finished their last can of Campbell's soup. And they started making some money, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, bless her heart, Dennis, I tell you. Anyway, so we stayed with those guys, you know. We stayed there 2 weeks one night. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
No, we did. We stayed there 2 weeks with those guys, and it was party all night and play the next night, and I never got no rest. And Bill Monroe said to me one time, he said, now you've got to get some rest tonight. And I thought, I wonder how he knows we're not sleeping. Of course, he's a little older than I was.
Yeah.
He figured that out.
Yeah, he had those road smarts. You could tell when someone hadn't slept enough. Somehow he knew.
But I got to know Doug, you know, and Rodney, and those guys are just they were great, and great entertainers, you know. They could entertain. They entertained all the time, on stage and off. They did.
Yep.
The whole bunch, you know.
You wouldn't trade those memories for
No,
the
it's
world, would
great, you know.
Yeah.
It's the things you do without even just accidentally, you know.
Yeah. Well, gee, we've lost Doc this year, Earl Scruggs, Doug Dillard, Andy Griffith, too, all these great North Carolinians and all these great bluegrass folks.
I know.
It's kind of odd. It's kind of weird how it's all
Yeah,
been
I
sort of
know,
happening
you
at
know.
once.
Telling you.
But you've got all these memories. I'm so glad you're sharing some of these stories, and these are just little snippets of it. You're going to maybe have a chance to really kind of tell some of these funny stories on a sea cruise. The Mountain Song at Sea Festival. You're going to be with a bunch of the folks actually at the Mountain Song Festival. Kruger Brothers, Grisman, and all. You guys done that
Yeah.
before? These cruises?
Well, we did a Delbert cruise. Go ahead and tell them about that,
you
Ron.
did. Delbert McClinton.
I'm doing all the talking here today.
He's warming up his voice.
we did a Delbert McClinton cruise once, you know, and funny thing on that cruise, he said, you know, I can write you a song and make you a household name. So I said, go ahead, write it. No, I didn't say that. But anyway, we did want one of his songs, but it never did make his household name.
Oh, darn it.
He's a card, that guy. I love that guy. He's just so down to earth and can sing, man. But that was the only cruise I think that I ever did, you know, on a ship like that. But
Yeah.
it was a bad one. And coming back, we were way down there somewhere. And Nashville, Tennessee had a foot of snow at least. when we got back, and what was happening is that nice weather down there was hitting this bad weather in the Gulf.
Yeah.
And Rob was in the back of the ship in a room back there, and he told our manager, Stan Strickland, he said, "You know, Stan, I hear a loud noise every now and then, am I right?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "That's the screw coming up out of the water. Like this, you know."
Whoa.
So it was, that last night was a rough one. I know we were entertained in the back of the ship going down, and coming back we were in the front of the ship, you know, inside that was, and if you went, we were using one mic on the ship there, and sometimes if you go for this mic, you might wind up over there and pass it up. You know?
Because if the mic doesn't slide, you might slide.
No, it
Yeah.
stayed there. We had to move around to get to the mic. Sometimes you'd pass it up and have to come back. You know?
Well, that makes it more fun, I guess, doesn't it?
It did, yeah.
You know, that's one of that reminds me of one of my favorite things about seeing you all and a few other bluegrass bands that do it so well. It's your overall appearance, and part of it is the choreography, moving around on stage and getting it just right. Was there someone in particular that inspired you? You know, we want to keep this appearance going because, you know, some folks these days that's not so important. Some folks it is.
Yeah, well, you know, actually, I grew, or when I started in a band, we had to always do that, you know, because we only had one mic. We could only, and if we carried our own sound system, we could only afford one mic, you know. So, but we always did, you know. I can remember Bill Monroe was really good at that. You know, he'd put that mandolin up here, and then he'd swing it over the top of this, over the top of the neck up over like that when he left. And he'd say, "Now you got to get in there." In a hurry, you know. And he said, "Now, before you can do anything, you got to get them feet set." I never heard that before, but that's from baseball, I think. You know, he was a baseball player also. But he said, "Now, before you can sing or play, you've got to get them feet set at that microphone. You know, it's a certain way, you know."
Yeah.
But we, you know, even before that, before I joined Bill Monroe, of course, you know, we always used, bluegrass band just used one mic, you know, all the time. I think on the Opry we used two for the fiddle. One was over here for the fiddle, you know, and the rest was all in this microphone here.
It's been so great to have you guys here. Rob McCoury on the banjo. Congratulations once again, Dad.
Thank you, man.
Jason Carter on the fiddle, one of our favorite fiddlers, folks. This is amazing. Jason Carter, thank you for coming in. And on the bass, and let me tell you, a secret weapon of the Del McCoury Band with his great voice, too, Alan Bartram. Yes, he's a great singer. It's great. And holds down the bass line, has for a number of years.
Don't stop.
For the Del McCoury Band. Del himself hosting the International Bluegrass Music Association big ceremony award show in Nashville later on this month. We enjoy broadcasting that here on Going Across the Mountain. We'll do that one of these Saturdays coming up.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Martin. Good. You know, I enjoyed being here. And also talking with Dennis, you know, we was talking about microphones and everything before.
Yeah, you got lots of fun stuff to talk about. We could talk for a while, but you got to get on up to Brevard, I'm sure. Thanks again for coming in, guys.
Glad you.
Thank you, Mark.